Hi, this is Bryan Hyde, and just bringing you an update. There's no court this whole week, but I wanted to share with you some thoughts about Bundy Ranch. And the reason I want to do this is because Bundy Ranch is a place that a lot of people have heard about. It's a lot of people hear Bundy Ranch and they get in their eyes or their mind, oh, I think I know what that's all about. But if you have never been to Bundy Ranch, I want to walk you through my experience at Bundy Ranch through the eyes of someone who has been there, and just some impressions that I had when I first visited the ranch, and since I have been back and visited it again. For those who don't know, Bundy Ranch is located in one of the most inhospitable corners of Nevada. And if you have ever driven between, say, St. George, Utah and Las Vegas, Nevada, you know that there are miles and miles of intensely dry and barren desert with very rugged mountains and canyons and washes out there. It is not a place for sissies. Okay, people like me who have want a comfortable life and don't want to be challenged by the elements. Nope, it's a very harsh desert environment, and yet when you get out there, you quickly realize that there is a beauty that is found out there in what would appear to be to most people just sagebrush and dirt and maybe a few mountains here and there. There's wildlife. There are plants that you won't see anywhere else. People would be shocked at the amount of life that you can find out there, and it's intimidating the first time you see that, especially if you're just driving through on the interstate. You have the impression that there is nothing out. How could anything live out there? But that's the land that the Bundys and their forebears came to. Their forebears, clear back in the late 1800s, decided this would be a great place to ranch. Not because it would be easy, but because there was room. And that is probably the first thing that struck me, was there is so much room. You do not feel closed in, and you don't feel encroached upon by anyone or anything. In fact, to people who've been in a more urban environment or used to people being all around them, it can be a little bit overwhelming. And yet, in the midst of all that dry, harsh desert landscape, right down there by the ranch house is a beautiful green swath of the Virgin River flowing through that is just like a little oasis out there, unexpected and yet greatly appreciated, especially on a summer day when you want to walk down to the river and wet your feet in it. You'll find a number of fields right there along where the actual ranch property is. And to me, this is one of the beautiful things that I didn't really expect. I'd seen the desert driving by, and was kind of in awe of that. If you've ever stared the desert in the face, you know that the desert does not adapt to you. People who live or work or play in the desert learn very quickly they must adapt to the desert. It calls the shots. It makes the rules, and there's no getting around it. But it was so neat to find that unexpected swath of green just flowing right through the middle of it. And this is where Cliven has raised his family along with Carol, and it's the kind of land where there is a spirit of independence and a spirit of connectedness to nature because of the fact that you can't bend the desert to your will. You have to learn to work in harmony with it. It's also a place where a young person, a young man or a young woman could grow and develop responsibility. And I'm just going to come right out and say it. In my life, I have never worked a day as hard as a single day in the life of a rancher. And I've known Ryan for a long time. As I've met the other members of his family, it's very clear to me these are people who are well acquainted with hard work and very well acquainted with what it means to get the job done, no matter what the conditions, whether it's in the heat of the summer or whether it's in the cold of the winter, whether you feel good or not. There are things that just have to be done, and they're the kind of can-do people who have done that. And having talked with Ryan over the years, I know that he and his brothers enjoyed an immense amount of freedom growing up in that desert environment and having the ability to get out there and play and explore and be mischievous, and at the same time to learn the responsibilities that molded them into the kind of men that they are today. and I think this can be said for all of their siblings. They were privileged to grow up in a place that was not as pampered as many of us grew up in, and yet has offered them the opportunity to develop character that counts. And I will say that it wasn't what I expected. The first time I went to Bundy Ranch, I thought it was just going to be desert and dust, and it was so much more. But there is a spirit about that place, and I don't know how to describe it. For those of you who don't have any kind of a metaphysical, understanding, I don't know how to describe it other than there is just there's a feeling of peace there, and there is a feeling that this is a place where a person could be free. I think back to something Ryan told me in the days following the events of April 2014. In fact, it was probably a year or more after I asked him, how have things been going? How's your life? And his comment was, he said, we have been more free this past year than at any time in the previous 20 years before that. And I think it had less to do with the fact that, the feds had backed off at that time, and more to do with the fact that they were free to work on that land as they wished to, and as they had been doing for generations. So I don't know if this is going to strike a chord with anybody, but I wanted to share with you just keep in mind that Bundy Ranch, it's not just a name, it's not just, the place people think of when they think of, the trial that is going on right now, but it is a place where generations of Americans have been raised with responsibility and with a love of the land and a love of their country and a love for their Creator. And there is something really neat about it. And the nice thing about it is the Bundys have been more than generous and more than hospitable in inviting people to come and to enjoy that and to see what they see and what they've experienced for generations. As there are more things to come forward in the trial, we will be sure to keep you posted. Our understanding is that today was the day that many of the remaining defendants were to be released from pretrial detention. Cliven Bundy, as I understand, is still choosing to refuse that pretrial release, and he is doing this because he is determined that when he walks out of that court or out of that jail, he will walk out as a free man, and that is him sticking to his principles, something I assume that stick-to-itiveness is something he learned in those years of hard work. So thanks again for joining us. We'll be talking to you soon.